Tuesday afternoon, 3:47 p.m. I was sorting through old photos when the phone rang. My son's picture flashed on the screen, him at his college graduation, the one I'd paid for with double shifts and weekend work. I picked up expecting the usual check-in. Maybe questions about the grandkids' soccer schedule or whether I needed anything from the store. Instead, his voice came through flat and businesslike, like he was confirming a dental appointment. "Dad?" he said, not even a hello first. "We've decided Thanksgiving is going to be just immediate family this year. Hope you understand." The words hung in the air like smoke from a burnt dinner. Immediate family. As if the man who taught him to ride a bike, who sat through every little league game, who paid his college tuition when scholarships fell through, as if I'd somehow been downgraded to extended relative. Like an old uncle you see at funerals. I felt the word immediate cut clean through 40 years of being his father. Through nights walking him with colic. Through teaching him to drive in the high school parking lot. Through writing that check for his house down payment when the bank wanted more than he had. I swallowed my real name, Dad, and said only, "Got it, son." I set the phone down, pulse steady as a clock, mind already moving past hurt toward something else. I sat in my leather chair, the one his mother picked out 20 years ago, and started counting. Not out loud, just in my head, like beads on a string. Boston University tuition, $47,000 a year for 4 years. His first car, that blue Honda he crashed within 6 months, $18,000. The down payment when he came to me, desperate, saying the house was perfect for starting a family, $65,000. Every Christmas where I handed him my credit card so his kids could have the kind of holiday he never could have afforded. Their Disney vacation last spring. His wife's birthday party at that downtown restaurant. The numbers stacked up like dishes in a sink. If I wasn't immediate family, why was my name on every bill that mattered? Why did my phone number auto-populate at every doctor's office as the emergency contact? Why did my credit card statement look like a documentary of his entire adult life? The insult crystallized into something harder than hurt. It turned into clarity, sharp and clean. My son had confused my wallet with my worth. He'd mistaken my generosity for an obligation. 40 years of love had become an autopay he didn't even notice anymore, just expected to keep running like utilities you never think about until they shut off. I opened my banking app, fingers steady on the screen. There it was in black and white, clear as tax documents. Tomorrow's pending charges already showing. Harvest Moon Catering, $3,200 deposit going final. Blossom Floral Design, $450 hold converting Thursday. Sparkle Clean Crew, $350 retainer for pre-party service. Even the DJ rental, $500 for premium holiday package. All of it scheduled to hit Thursday morning, 2 days before Thanksgiving. All of it tied to one thing, my American Express on file. I scrolled through 3 months of statements. Every vendor had my card saved from previous holidays, birthdays, celebrations I'd funded like a silent investor who never got dividends. They probably didn't even know whose money actually paid them. My son would take the thank yous, the compliments on the spread, while my contribution stayed invisible as the heating bill. The hand that feeds turned out to have 16 digits and a CVV code. It expired next year, but its usefulness had apparently expired already. If I wasn't family enough to eat at the table, why was I family enough to pay for what sat on it? The math was simple. Elementary, really. If you subtract the person from the equation, you subtract their resources too. That's just basic economics. Even a child would understand that. My thumb hovered over card services at the bottom of the screen. No speeches needed. That was never my style anyway. I'd raised my son with actions, not words. When he needed lunch money, I didn't lecture about responsibility. I just made sure his account was full. When he called from college, broke and embarrassed, I didn't shame him. I transferred funds before we hung up. When his wife wanted that expensive wedding venue, I didn't question it. I wrote the check and smiled in the photos. But somewhere along the way, my silence had been mistaken for acceptance of disrespect. My quick solutions had taught him that Dad was a utility, not a person. Like electricity or water, always there, always on, never appreciated until it stops flowing. Well, utilities can be shut off for non-payment. And respect was a bill that had come due. I wouldn't yell or argue or demand apologies. That would just create a scene, and scenes could be apologized away later, smoothed over with hollow words, and empty promises to do better. No, this required something quieter. Something that couldn't be talked around or explained away. One clean cut that said everything words never could. The kind of lesson that arrives not through your ears, but through consequences. I tapped call and waited for the customer service line to connect. American Express Card Services, this is Patricia. How may I assist you today? Her voice was professionally warm, trained to handle everything from fraud alerts to forgotten passwords. I need to cancel card ending in 4782 immediately, I said, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand. And please block all previously authorized merchant tokens. Certainly, Mr. Williams. May I ask the reason for cancellation? We could explore other options if the card has served its purpose. I need it canceled and all recurring authorizations terminated. I heard her typing, quick and efficient. I understand, sir. This will prevent any pending or future charges from processing, including any pre-authorizations currently in the system. The cancellation is effective immediately. Merchants will be notified when they attempt to process payment. Perfect. That's exactly what I need. The card is now canceled. Merchants with scheduled charges will receive decline notices when they attempt collection. Is there anything else? No, Patricia. You've been very helpful. She confirmed the cancellation number for my records. I wrote it down carefully, though I knew I wouldn't need it. This wasn't the kind of decision you second-guess or reverse. When you close a door this firmly, you don't keep the key. I ended the call and immediately pulled up my contacts list. I called each vendor like I was checking items off a grocery list. Polite, professional, just informing them of a change. The caterer first. This is Dennis Williams. I need to inform you that the payment method on file is no longer valid. You'll need to arrange alternate payment with the host. Oh, Mr. Williams. The final payment is due at delivery Thursday morning. Will another card be? That's between you and the event host. I'm just providing courtesy notice. The florist got the same message. Then the cleaning service. The DJ. Each one confirmed their policy. Payment due at service or service stops. No payment, no setup. No exceptions for holidays. That was business, nothing personal. Just like excluding me from Thanksgiving was nothing personal, just immediate family. Each vendor thanked me for the heads up, said they'd follow up with my son directly. I knew they wouldn't. Not until Thursday morning when their tablets declined and they had to make awkward conversations at the front door. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I'd been more than courteous, more considerate than someone who wasn't immediate family needed to be. The caterer had been clear. Mr. Williams, per our policy, if payment isn't received at delivery, we'll need to return with the food. Wednesday came and went like any other day. No call from my son. No last-minute invitation. No apology. No sudden realization that excluding your father might be wrong. If he'd noticed the card change, he didn't mention it. Though why would he check? The money had always just been there, reliable as sunrise. I cleaned my garage, organized old tools, the normal rhythms of a day when you're not scrambling to help with last-minute Thanksgiving preparations. Around 4 o'clock, Mrs. Patterson from across the street walked over to get her mail. We'd been neighbors for 15 years. She'd watched my son grow from a teenager to a man with his own family. Dennis, she called out, waving. You must be excited about tomorrow. Your son mentioned you'd all be having quite the spread. I'm heading over there myself. He invited half the neighborhood. Said it would be the best Thanksgiving yet. Half the neighborhood, but not his father. Enjoy yourself, Margaret, I said, keeping my voice neutral. I'm sure it will be memorable. Aren't you going early to help set up? Different plans this year. She looked confused but didn't push. Good fences make good neighbors, and knowing when not to ask questions makes better ones. I nodded, kept my counsel, and set my alarm for a quiet Thursday. Thanksgiving morning arrived gray and ordinary. No fanfare, no special feeling in the air. I made coffee in my single-serve machine, 2 sugars, no cream. Ironed a dress shirt out of decades-old habit from when Thanksgiving meant church service first, dinner after. Then I looked at it hanging there, crisp and ready for nowhere, and put it back in the closet. The house felt different when you weren't rushing to get ready, checking your watch, calculating drive time. No casserole to keep warm in the car. No wine bottle to wrap. No envelope with a check for the kids that would really go toward my son's credit card bills. Just morning light through kitchen windows and coffee that I could drink at my own pace. I sat at my small table, the one his mother had wanted to replace but never got around to. Said a prayer, not for revenge, never for revenge, but for respect. For the understanding that love without boundaries becomes enabling. That generosity without gratitude becomes expectation. That a father's worth isn't measured in dollars transferred or bills paid, but in lessons taught, even when those lessons come late. My phone buzzed on the counter. A photo from Margaret Patterson, sent to several neighbors. The photo showed my son's dining room at 10 a.m., and it looked like a construction site trying to become a party. Half-decorated tables with napkins still wrapped in plastic. Boxes stacked against walls. Kids running through the living room between Amazon packages and folding chairs that hadn't been set up yet. The tablecloth was crooked, only covering 3/4 of the table. Place settings sat in neat stacks, waiting for someone to distribute them. Margaret's caption read, "Weird vibe. Thought we were eating at noon." I set the phone face down and took a slow breath. The caterers would arrive soon with their warming trays and serving stations. The florist would bring those centerpieces my son's wife had posted about on Instagram last week. Thanksgiving goals, she'd written. The cleaning crew would transform this chaos into magazine-worthy entertainment space. All of it scheduled, all of it guaranteed by a card that no longer existed. I made myself toast with butter and jam, taking time to spread it evenly to the edges. No rush. Nowhere to be. Nobody expecting me. The kitchen clock ticked toward 11 a.m., when the caterers' trucks would start their engines, loading up hundreds of pounds of food. In her next video, I saw a white delivery truck pulling up the driveway. The video was shaky, Margaret probably filming to show her husband the fancy catering setup. But what she captured was something else entirely. 2 men in Harvest Moon uniforms wheeled in 3 warming stations, metal trays gleaming with promise. The lead caterer, a woman with a tight bun and tablet in hand, smiled professionally as my son signed the delivery receipt. Then the smile faltered. She swiped the tablet again, whispered something to her colleague, tried once more. The universal dance of a declined card, performed in someone's foyer while guests pretended not to notice. My son's voice, muffled but audible. "That's impossible. Try again. Sir, it's declining. Do you have another form of payment? The card on file should work. We've used it for years. The authorization is being rejected. Our policy requires payment at delivery, or we need to reload the order." A child's voice somewhere. "Are those the mashed potatoes?" The caterer looked genuinely sorry as she signaled her team. Professional, but firm. They began wheeling the warmers back toward the truck, hundreds of pounds of turkey, stuffing, sides, and desserts making their exit. Guests watched a complete Thanksgiving dinner leave in stainless steel containers. My son's name lit up my phone screen. The phone rang with the special ringtone I'd set for him years ago, his college fight song, back when every call was an achievement to celebrate. Now it played like a funeral march. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times, 4. On the 5th ring, it went to voicemail. 20 seconds later, a text, "Dad, call me now." Then another ring. Another decline to voicemail. His message came through garbled, like he was walking fast while talking. "Dad, something's wrong with the card. The caterer just left with all the food. This is an emergency. Call me back." An emergency. Not when he decided I wasn't family enough for dinner, but now when the money stopped. Funny how emergencies align with empty stomachs and full houses of guests. I buttered a dinner roll I'd baked myself that morning. Nothing fancy, just flour, yeast, and time. Things you can't buy with someone else's credit card. Another text. "Dad, please." Then, "People are here." Then, "This is humiliating." Yes, I thought, spreading homemade apple butter on the warm bread. Yes, it probably is. Humiliation has a way of arriving when you least expect it, like being told you're not welcome at a dinner you're paying for. Another video arrived from Margaret, flowers being lifted off the tables. The florist arrived in a van painted with roses and the slogan, "Making memories beautiful." 2 young men began arranging centerpieces with practiced efficiency. Tall autumn arrangements with orange roses, burgundy dahlias, golden wheat stalks. They'd gotten 3 tables done when the lead designer, a woman in a green apron, checked her tablet. The same dance began. Swipe. Frown. Swipe again. A quiet conversation with my son in the corner. Then, with the kind of apologetic professionalism that comes from dealing with declined payments before, she signaled her team. They began carefully lifting the centerpieces they'd just placed, tipping water from vases back into their bucket, gathering stems like a movie in reverse. What's happening? A guest's voice, caught on Margaret's video. Small mix-up, my son said, his voice tight as a wire. Just give us a minute. But the florists weren't waiting. They had other deliveries, other houses where payment would clear. They wrapped the arrangements in tissue, loaded them back in the van. One centerpiece got left behind in the confusion. A single autumn arrangement on a table set for 20, looking as lonely as a father eating Thanksgiving alone. The cleaning crew appeared in the background, checking their phones, already reaching for their equipment. The cleaning crew didn't make a scene. They just looked at their app notification, shared a quick conversation in Spanish, and started packing up their supplies. The lead cleaner, an older man with kind eyes, tried to explain to my son's wife. Payment declined, Senora. We cannot continue without payment. But you're already here. You already started. I'm sorry. Company policy. They'd done half the house. Vacuum lines decorated only the living room's north side, like someone had drawn a line down the middle. One bathroom sparkled while its twin remained untouched. The kitchen gleamed, but the dining room still had yesterday's dust on the baseboards. It looked like a house caught between two different days, half ready for company, half admitting defeat. Trash bags sat by the hallway, tied, but not taken. The mop bucket waited in the laundry room, water going cold. Mrs. Patterson's camera caught my son's wife frantically spraying Febreze, as if air freshener could mask the smell of plans falling apart. In the background, a child's voice pierced through the chaos. Mom, where's the turkey? I'm hungry. That innocent question hung in the air while adults exchanged glances, everyone suddenly aware that dinner wasn't coming. My son tried to hold his face together like a man, keeping water in cupped hands. His smile stretched, but didn't reach his eyes, the kind of expression you wear when you're drowning but don't want to scare the children. Small hiccup with the bank, he announced to the room. Give me 2 minutes. He pulled out his own credit card, did the mental math that every parent knows. Mortgage payment versus feeding 20 people. His hand hesitated over his wallet, calculating what he could afford versus what he'd promised. I knew that pause. It was the same one I'd felt every time he'd called needing help, except I'd never hesitated. I just paid. Someone asked, not meanly but not quietly either, wasn't your dad covering Thanksgiving dinner? The room went silent except for the grandfather clock in the corner, the one I'd helped them move from his mother's estate. My son's face changed colors like a sunset, red to purple to something pale and defeated. Technical difficulty, he managed. His phone buzzed in his hand. He looked down at the screen, and I knew he was reading my name. His thumbs moved over the keyboard, typing, deleting, typing again. The message arrived. Dad, did you cancel it? I looked at his text for a long moment. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again as he typed and deleted whatever accusations or pleas were forming in his mind. Finally, I typed back one sentence. You said I'm not immediate family. Simple. Clear. No anger in it, just fact. Like reading back a receipt or confirming an order. You said this, so I did that. Cause and effect. The kind of lesson I should have taught him 30 years ago with smaller stakes and lesser heartbreak. The 3 dots danced on my screen for a full minute. Started, stopped, started again. He was looking for the words to make this my fault, to make his exclusion of me somehow different from my exclusion of my credit card. But math doesn't care about justification. Either I'm family or I'm not. Either I'm at the table or my money isn't. No reply came. Instead, Margaret sent another photo. Guests checking phones and watches, that universal gesture of people preparing excuses to leave. A woman held her purse in her lap, ready to stand. A man had already put on his coat, but hadn't quite committed to walking out yet. I silenced my phone and set its screen down on the counter. Whatever came next would be loud on his end, but I was done with noise. Done with the constant buzz of being needed for money, but not wanted for me. I plated my small meal with the care of a chef. Turkey breast from the local deli, mashed potatoes I'd made from scratch, green beans with almonds, cranberry sauce from a can, because sometimes simple is enough. I sat at my table for one, said grace for the food and the clarity to know when enough was enough. Dignity tasted better than any catered spread. Peace flavored every bite. This wasn't revenge served cold. It was boundaries served at exactly the right temperature. My neighbor's text came through despite the silenced phone. The vibration subtle against the wooden table. People are leaving. Of course they were. That's what happens when promises exceed payment. When your mouth writes checks your character can't cash. They'd come for dinner and found only disappointment. They'd dressed up for nothing, arranged babysitters for an event that evaporated before the appetizers. But I stayed focused on my meal, cutting my turkey into neat pieces, taking time to taste what I'd chosen to prepare for myself. The video Margaret sent showed a parade of polite disasters. My son at his front door, voice thin as November ice. We'll definitely reschedule. Maybe next weekend. But everyone knew there was no rescheduling Thanksgiving. It came once a year, and when you missed it, you missed it. Jackets went on with the quickness of people who'd waited too long already. Casserole dishes that guests had brought to share got loaded back into cars. Green bean casseroles and sweet potato pies returning home untouched. So sorry this happened. Someone said, the kind of empty comfort you offer when you're embarrassed for someone else. These things happen. Another added, which was a lie. These things don't just happen. They're caused. My son stood in his doorway like a maitre d' at a restaurant that had run out of food, apologizing to each departing guest, his embarrassment so thick you could spread it on toast. His wife had disappeared somewhere into the house, probably crying in the bathroom or calling her mother to complain about the disaster her husband had created. Children were the hardest to watch leave, confused, hungry, dressed in their best clothes for nothing. One little girl asked her mother, "Why isn't there dinner?" Her mother hushed her gently, ushering her toward the car. The music rental van pulled up as the last guests pulled away. The DJ looked confused, checking his phone against the house number. He'd driven 40 minutes with a full sound system for the premium holiday package. Speakers, mixing board, microphone for toasts that would never happen. My son met him at the truck. "We're canceling," my son said quietly. Cancellation fee is 50% per the contract. The payment method was declined anyway. The DJ shrugged, the universal gesture of someone who'd seen enough declined payments to know when to cut his losses. He drove away without unloading a single speaker, and the house settled into the kind of quiet that follows disaster. My son, for the first time in years, had to solve his own problem. I knew he was calling every restaurant in town. Thanksgiving evening. Everywhere either closed or booked solid. Maybe the Chinese place on Division Street. But their minimum order for 20 people would cost more than he had in his account. Finally, around 7:30, Margaret's last update showed a single car returning, a delivery driver with 3 paper bags. Lukewarm takeout, probably from the only place still answering phones. Enough to feed his immediate family, not enough to salvage dignity. Another voicemail landed on my phone, this one tight with the kind of anger that comes from shame. I played his voicemail on speaker while washing my single plate, letting his words fill my quiet kitchen. "Dad, this is completely unacceptable. You humiliated me in front of everyone. My boss was here. My wife's family. The neighbors. You didn't have to do that. We could have talked about this. You could have said something instead of this passive-aggressive stunt. Call me back." Passive-aggressive. Interesting choice of words from someone who'd excluded me from a holiday about gratitude while actively using my money. I didn't delete the message. Some lessons need to be preserved, kept like receipts for returns you know are coming. Proof that even in his anger, he couldn't say the words that mattered. "I'm sorry," or "You're right," or "I shouldn't have excluded you." Instead, he focused on his embarrassment, his reputation, his ruined dinner. The me of someone who'd never learned that relationships are transactions too. And when you overdraw on respect, the account closes. I dried my plate carefully, put it back in the cabinet. Outside, November darkness had settled over the neighborhood. Porch lights glowed at houses where families gathered successfully, where gratitude included everyone who'd earned a seat. Night fell over 2 houses, mine, calm as still water, his, hollow as an empty wallet. I sat in my chair and made a list, not on paper but in my mind, clear as an invoice. Things I would no longer do. Pay to be disrespected. Fund events I was excluded from. Confuse enabling with love. Accept immediate family as a category that changed based on who was writing checks. Let my generosity be mistaken for obligation. Subsidize ingratitude. Pretend that money could buy what respect should have earned for free. The list grew longer as evening deepened. Each item was a small freedom, A tiny rebellion against years of being treated like an ATM with feelings nobody needed to consider. I'd spent 2 decades pouring money into a bucket with no bottom, hoping that eventually it would fill with appreciation. But some buckets are designed to leak, and some people prefer them that way. Respect wasn't something you could deposit or withdraw. It wasn't subject to interest rates or payment plans. It was either there or it wasn't, and when it wasn't, no amount of money could purchase it. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. For the first time in years, the balance was mine. No pending charges for other people's lives. No automatic transfers to solve someone else's problems. I drafted a message in my Notes app, something calm and clear. The message was simple. No lectures, no guilt, just policy. I won't sponsor events I'm excluded from. If I'm not immediate family, my card isn't either. This is not negotiable. I read it twice, checking for anger that might undermine the point. But it was clean. A business communication, the kind you'd send to a vendor or service provider. Which, apparently, was what I'd become. I copied it, pasted it into a text, and hit send. The delivered appeared immediately, followed seconds later by read. Those little notifications that tell you someone has received your message but hasn't figured out how to respond. The 3 dots appeared, started their dance, then vanished. Started again. Stopped. He was probably showing it to his wife, maybe calling her parents, trying to find the angle where he was the victim and I was the villain. But math has no angles. Services rendered, payment due. Services withdrawn, payment canceled. Even a child running a lemonade stand understands that. No threats in my message. No heat. No tomorrow you'll be sorry. Just a man establishing the terms under which his wallet would open. Like any business, I reserved the right to refuse service. Delivered. Read. No reply. Later that evening, Margaret knocked on my door with a covered plate and the careful expression of someone carrying dynamite. She'd been at the disaster, witnessed the great unraveling firsthand. "Dennis," she said softly, "I brought you some leftovers from my sister's place." I accepted the plate with genuine gratitude. She lingered on my porch, clearly wanting to say more. "That was quite a scene today," she finally offered. "So I heard. 23 people, Dennis. All dressed up, kids hungry, and then..." She shook her head. "Your son just stood there after everyone left. Didn't move for maybe 10 minutes. Hard lesson," I said simply. "The caterers took everything. Even the dinner rolls." His wife was crying in the kitchen. I heard her on the phone with her mother, saying something about credit cards and trust. She studied my face, looking for guilt or satisfaction, but finding neither. "You okay?" she asked finally. I nodded once. "Better than I've been in years." She squeezed my shoulder gently, the kind of touch that says I understand without needing details, and walked back across the street. Good neighbors know when to talk and when to stop talking. I ate Margaret's food, turkey and stuffing made by someone who still remembered that recipes were about more than money. Each bite tasted like what Thanksgiving should be, shared freely, without calculation, among people who actually wanted you there. After dinner, I washed the plate she'd brought, dried it carefully to return tomorrow. Then I made tea and sat in my living room. No TV, no music, just the quiet that comes when you stop financing other people's noise. Peace arrived not with fanfare, but like fog, settling gently over everything. I'd spent so many years in the chaos of being needed. Phone always on, credit card always ready, checkbook always open, that I'd forgotten what silence sounded like. It sounded like freedom. It sounded like respect for yourself when no one else offers it. My phone lit up again across the room. I could see it from my chair, but didn't move to check it. Whatever emergency or manipulation was brewing could wait. Or better yet, could be solved without me. Amazing how many emergencies resolve themselves when your credit card isn't available. The text notification showed on the screen. "Dad." I waited until morning to read his full message. "Dad, can we talk? In person. Please." 3 sentences. No accusations this time. No anger. Just the exhaustion of someone who'd fought reality and lost. I responded. "Yes. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. My house." Not a negotiation. Not a request. A simple statement of when and where. If he wanted to talk, it would be on my terms, in my space, at my convenience. The days of dropping everything for his schedule were as canceled as that credit card. He texted back immediately, "Thank you." 2 words that had been missing from our vocabulary for so long I'd forgotten how they looked written out. But thank you for what? For agreeing to talk? For teaching him a lesson? For finally showing him that fathers aren't fountains that never run dry. I set the phone down and went about my Friday. Groceries for one. Bill payments from my own checking account for my own utilities. A walk through the neighborhood where everyone now knew about yesterday's disaster, but was too polite to mention it directly. Tomorrow we'd talk. Not to reopen the wallet. That door had locks now. But to maybe, possibly, start building something that didn't require a credit card to maintain. I turned off the kitchen light and headed to bed. Saturday arrived crisp and bright. The kind of November day that makes you grateful for small things. Coffee that you bought yourself. A house you pay for alone. Peace that doesn't cost $3,200 in catering. I didn't rehearse a speech. He'd already heard everything that mattered. The caterers driving away had been paragraph 1. The florists packing up, paragraph 2. Each departed guest was a punctuation mark in a lesson about taking people for granted. At 2 p.m. exactly, his car pulled into my driveway. He walked to my door slower than I'd ever seen him move, like a man approaching a sentencing. But when I opened the door, what I saw wasn't my son the taker, the user, the one who'd forgotten I was family. I saw the boy who'd once brought me dandelions thinking they were flowers, who'd made me Father's Day cards with crayon and construction paper, who'd cried on my shoulder when his mother died. "Hi, Dad," he said quietly. "Hello, son." We sat across from each other at my small kitchen table. He noticed the clean counters, the organized space, the peace that comes when you're not constantly hemorrhaging money for others. "I understand now," he said simply. "What you did. Why you did it." I nodded but didn't speak. The lesson was already taught. 23 hungry guests had been better teachers than any words I could offer. "I'm sorry," he continued. "For all of it. For taking you for granted. For the money. For saying you weren't immediate family." I looked at my son, really looked at him, for the first time in years. "Family isn't about blood," I said finally. "It's about respect. And respect isn't a credit card. It's a choice you make every day." He nodded, understanding maybe for the first time that love without boundaries becomes abuse, that generosity without gratitude becomes expectation, that fathers are people, not banks. We talked for 2 hours. Not about money, not about Thanksgiving, but about his kids, my grandchildren. About his job. About the crushing weight of trying to live beyond means. About the difference between providing and enabling. About how to move forward. When he left, there were no promises of reinstated credit cards or resumed payments. Just a handshake and an agreement to try again, differently this time. To build something that didn't require my American Express as a foundation. I watched his car disappear down my street, then went inside to make dinner for one. But tonight, alone didn't feel lonely. It felt like choice. It felt like respect. It felt like the beginning of something honest. I hadn't raised my voice or my hand. Hadn't made a scene or demanded apologies. I'd simply reminded him, without saying a word, that you don't cut off the hand that feeds you, especially not before the feast. Sometimes the best lessons are taught in silence, delivered by absence, signed with declined credit cards. And sometimes, if you're lucky, they're actually learned.